Amazing. So it looks like we have a handful of participants in here already. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If we haven't connected before, or if you haven't attended one of our events before, my name is Kelly, and I'm the founder and executive director of Impact Travel Alliance. Impact Travel Alliance is a global community and nonprofit that's aimed at improving the world through travel. And we do this through education and advocacy around sustainable tourism, helping travelers understand how to incorporate impact into every type of travel, no matter their style, budget, or destination. So for the past couple of weeks and as an ongoing series, we've been talking about the ethics of travel during the pandemic. And through this ongoing series on reopening destinations, talking about how travelers can make informed decisions about whether they should or shouldn't travel right now. A lot of what we're seeing within the industry is that it's often characterized as a black or white issue, and people are on one side of the fence or the other, but there's a lot of different nuances and stories and perspectives within this narrative. And so our goal is to help you, again, make informed decisions, but do this through amplifying local voices. Today, we're going to be talking about what has often been touted as one of the most, quote, pandemic-friendly styles of travel, and that is road trips and taking outdoor adventures. On the surface, it feels like a very socially distanced activity. You're outside. It feels like everything is low risk. But one of the things that I think is really important to talk about is the fact that oftentimes on our road trips, especially to national parks in the United States, we're going directly through indigenous land. And so our speaker today, who we're joined by, is Alfreida Littleboy. She is the owner and founder of a community-based tourism project that's a food truck right near the Grand Canyon. And I'm really excited to hear her perspective about what's happening within her community right now. So thanks so much for joining us, Alfreida.
You're welcome. Hi, everyone. My name is Alfreida Littleboy. And I live in Cameron, Arizona. Is where we live, and also where our business is based in. And we are about 45 miles east of the Grand Canyon, and we're based right at the community is based at the entrance, about, I'd say 30 miles from the main entrance to the Grand Canyon National Park. And we do own a food truck business there. We provide traditional food. Cuisine is just very natural. It's a different type of experience. We've been with Planetara, and we've been also providing a more cultural as travelers that have come through with Planetara. So that's what we're doing. But currently we are closed, and that is of course due to the pandemic, and also because the whole Navajo Nation has pretty much shut down all vending types of businesses, and most of the small businesses that are based on the reservation are vending types. They're not brick and mortar like if you were to go into the city. That's not how the Navajo Nation is set up. Is there anything? Yeah. This is the first time I did this. Sorry. I'm like, okay, where do I go from here?
No, absolutely. That's great. Can you tell me a little bit more about thinking about the food truck in an era of tourism pre-COVID? Can you describe what that experience is like, whether you're a local visiting the food truck, or if you're a traveler that's coming through going, whether you might be part of a G Adventures trip, going through what's that experience like for someone to come through and visit your food truck?
Well, we are set up on our food truck is set up. We have an outside area, an eatery place. It's a gazebo. It's all open, and we would sometimes take time out and answer questions for travelers. You know, a lot of travelers come through and they have a lot of questions about the culture, the traditions, and just the land itself. And then of course the setup of our government set up. You know, they have a lot of questions, so we always try to provide that information. That would be just a regular travel or coming through, or we would, you know, give them destinations that they may be interested in, and those were, so we had a lot of contact with them. And then as far as tours that came through with G Adventures, it was a more personal. What they did is they actually came to our home, because our vending site is set up where I'd say we're about half a mile. So what they did, they would come, the tour bus would come to our home where we have our traditional setting. It's a hogan, you know, and so they would come in and we would provide their meals at the hogan, and they would sit outside, eat. We have picnic tables, we have the umbrellas, so that they would sit outside and have their meals. We served breakfast and we also served lunch, so that's where they had their meals. And then they would go into the hogan, and we would provide a little bit of history background, why things are the way they are on the reservation as economically, and then why we don't have why we aren't as developed, the history, and in the history of the land. And so those were a lot of the things. We gave them the backstory of that. And if they had any questions culturally, you know, we did the best that we can to answer those, because they made a majority of the trip deeper into the reservation. Where we're located, we're probably about 3 miles from the border. We're at the border of the reservation. So that was experience that between the two. And then of course local, we had a lot of local customers also, and so that was more that was, you know, people that we knew in our community and throughout the reservation. But now we're closed, you know, we're not, and we've been trying to decide whether we want to take the chance of even reopening, or if we're going to just wait it out.
So tell me more about Navajo Nation. I know that this is something, even in the promotion of this event, when I've been talking to a lot of people about it, they haven't realized, first of all, the size of it, but then the size, I know that it actually touches 3 states. So it's actually
Yes.
a pretty, a big region that is stretched a lot across a lot of land. But second of all, you started alluding to some of the history and the context behind that. I know that I think the stats that I've seen, even for running water, has been that as much as anywhere between 15 and 30% of the communities within Navajo Nation don't even have running water. And so for me, I'm in New York, and we hear so much about wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I hear that statistic and I think about what a privilege it is to even be able to wash my hands. So I know that there's a lot of different themes to unpack from all of that, but can you give a little bit more context on all of that?
Sure. The Navajo Reservation you could best compare it to, it's probably the size of West Virginia. So that's how big the Navajo Reservation is, which is about 23,000 square acres. Yeah, that's what I have. So, and it's pretty big, it's very vast, and as big, if you can imagine the size of West Virginia, and we only have 9 grocery stores that we can go to, and then also the little gas stations, the little convenience stores here and there. And so as you can see, a lot of our economy is based on small businesses, and which is vendor, you know, small businesses, family owned, vending businesses, open out in the open. And you'll see a lot of that, and that all, it's set up that way because of the policies, the politics, so the regulations, and that it goes back to a lot of the BIA and the federal guidelines. You know, there's a lot of red tape, and that also affects why we don't have access to running water and electricity, because the land that we live on is, if you really want it, it's federal land. It doesn't really belong to us. and we have to abide by state laws, county laws, federal laws. So it's not just that, a few. We have all these other things that we have to go through. So even just to start a small business, you go through a lot of work. The first thing you have to do is you have to do a land withdrawal, which goes through the community, and you have to ask your community if you can withdraw that piece of land to run your business. And once the community okays it, then you still have to go through all the way just to get a Navajo Nation business license. I have to have somebody in Washington, D.C. sign off on it, and that takes 5 to 10 years. So if I go to the state of Arizona or the city of Flagstaff, I can get a business license in 1 week. So as you can see, it's very different, which makes it so difficult to have an economic development based on those all the hurdles that we have to go through to even get a Navajo Nation business license. And then even once you get a Navajo business license, if you walk into a bank, it doesn't mean you can't even open a business checking account. They won't recognize it. They'll say, sorry, you can't open a business account. This is not valid in the state of Arizona or anywhere else. It is only valid on the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation doesn't have their own banks. Our bank contracts with Wells Fargo, so we have Wells Fargo banks on the reservation. Even the banks that the Wells Fargo banks are located on the reservation will not acknowledge the Navajo Nation business license to get a checking account. So in order to do that, as for me, I realized that early on, so I went and got a state license. So I was able to maneuver, but I still have to also abide by Navajo Nation. And it depends on where you're at. I don't know if anybody has come to the reservation, and you'll notice that all the businesses are going to be the vending jewelry businesses or any type of food businesses will be based along the state highways because those are state land, and then they're able to operate their business. But once they go on the other side of the fence, that becomes Navajo Nation. Now you're abiding by different laws and regulations, and you have to go through the 10-year wait of getting a Navajo Nation business license. So those are all the obstacles that we have to face that to even have economic development. And then that also is the same hurdles that we have to overcome just to get a piece of land to live on and to even have access to our basic rights, which is water and electricity. Those are all the red tape that we have to go through. Currently, I am helping, it's called Community Land Use Planning Committee, which is for our community where I live. I sit on that committee, and we have been working and making lists of people who need running water, who need electricity. And still, we have to go through all the process, and in order for people to get their water turned on, we have to have a piece of paper that's called a home site lease, which is basically also another federal piece of document saying that we are being allowed to lease that land for 75 years from the federal government. That is the only way we can get our water turned on. So as the funding that has come in, I don't even think it's going to even be spent by December. It just seems so impossible because everything, all the policies and the things that we are faced up against, it's a lengthy process. So where I live currently, we don't have running water or electricity. We haul our own water, and I'm water every 2 days because we grow our own food. We have a garden. We have sheep, cows, and horses, and every day we're hauling water every couple days just to make sure that we have access to water. So yes, it is very difficult to for people to say wash your hands when you have to go through all the hoops just to even get a bucket of water. So it, compared to having running water, having that access, so we tend to take that for granted. So I hope that answers your question. I know it's a lot of information.
I think it's something that not enough people are aware of, though, that's happening in our own country. And I know from personal experience that starting a small business is a labor of love in and of itself. And that is without all of those hurdles that you're talking about. And all of these hurdles on top of that from the pandemic right now that are impacting your community is just a lot to take in, first of all, about what your community is going through, and the fact that most people in the United States aren't aware of these issues is such a big thing. Can we talk about a little bit, I guess, that touched a lot on your community pre-coronavirus. Let's fast forward to now and talk about what's happening right now within your community. I know that when we were talking last, you were telling me about the grocery stores, and I mentioned that I know how everyone's talking about taking road trips right now. They're talking about going to the Grand Canyon. You mentioned that one of the gates to the Grand Canyon is closed. That's the one that's near your community. You mentioned how travelers are having impacts on your community from them coming through that area on their road trips. Can you talk more about that?
Sure, I can. Like I mentioned earlier, we only have 9 grocery stores on the reservations, major, as you can imagine, the size of Fry's, Safeway. We only have 9 of those. And for where I live, our nearest grocery store is about 40 minutes away. So, when we go, we kind of have to do everybody's grocery shopping, because just to be on the safe side. And where we live in our community, we have 4 gas stations and 3 convenience stores. And those convenience stores, we have people that live about, I'd say, 5-10 miles off the main highway. And a lot of we don't have like I said, we don't have running water, we don't have electricity. So we haul our water, which we have to go through to the main hub, which I could say the main hub is where the gas stations are, the watering point is, and then that's also where we get our propane. We have to when you go camping, everybody has a little propane bottle. So that's a basic necessity for us. So every couple of weeks, we have to go to the grocery store and fill our propane bottles, get gas for our generators, of course, and we don't have electricity. So therefore, to keep our food cold, we have to get ice. So we purchase our ice and then we face any other basic necessities that we need, toilet paper, because not everybody has the means to drive 40 miles to get to the main grocery store to get what they need. And as Navajo Nation is in lockdown on weekends. So if anybody needs to do anything, it has to be done during the week. And so we have a lot of travelers that travel through our community, and they make it extremely hard for us to for us to get our basic necessities, to get gas, propane, because it is just very crowded when we get there. And it's it makes it, to me, I feel like I have a higher chance of exposing myself, because we have so many travelers going through, and not a lot of people are even aware that the east gate to the Grand Canyon is closed, and they've been vandalizing them trying to get through. And but we have another entrance, which is on the west side, that is open, because that one does not go through the reservation. And on that side, of course, that's in the city of Flagstaff and the city of Williams. they have mini grocery stores. They have gas stations more than we do. So it's safer for them to go there instead of traveling through the reservation. And there's times that when we do get there, there's not some of the things that we need because we have travelers coming in. So it does cause an impact, and also it impacts our elderly community, our elderlies, because those are where they go. Those are the places that they go to get what they need, and it's a high risk. So it's cause for concern. I mean, it really concerns me that, and a lot of people are not aware that it's wearing a mask is mandated on the Navajo reservation. And then a lot of people are not aware that we are closed on weekends. So when they travel through, there's no place to get food or anything that you need to pump. If you have a credit card, yes, you can get gas, but other than that, we're completely shut down. All our fast food restaurants are closed. All the hotels are closed. Everything is closed. All the grocery stores, everything is closed on weekends. So we do get a lot of travelers because a lot of people are not aware that the entrance on the east side of the Grand Canyon is closed. But the Highway 89, which runs through our community, is also the main highway that connects to the freeway into the state of Utah. So there's actually really no getting around it. So we're all going to have travelers regardless, even if they're not going to the Grand Canyon. We're going to have the travelers go through there. There's just no getting around it.
You touched briefly upon how we know that from the coronavirus that anyone who's older is higher risk. And you touched briefly upon the elders within your community. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I know that many of the traditions that you all have, whether that's related to language or the ceremonies that you have, often those are passed on down from the elders. And can you tell me a little bit more about that and how it's a higher risk specifically for those individuals within your reservation?
Okay. It is a higher risk because, like you said, they do carry a lot of the cultural knowledge and the language. And as for my mom is, we don't allow her to go anywhere, and we do the best that we can to protect her. And she's, since this pandemic, since March, we have not allowed her to go anywhere. But a lot of our elders they're okay with that. They're okay with staying home because we do a lot. Like I said, we don't have running water, so we have sheep and cattle and horses. So they a lot of our elders tend to those. And like currently for my mom, she does a lot of weaving. And but there are some families that have elders that their children and their grandchildren do not live on the reservation. So those are the ones that are higher risk because they have to go out and do their own shopping and get their own basic necessities. So we have our community has tried to do their best by providing food and propane and the basic necessities that they need so they don't have to travel. So that our community has tried to do the best that they can. But a lot of our elders are very traditional, so they tend to live further off the main highway. So they're about 5-10 miles. So it is a little harder to get to them. And then we also have some people that do a lot of water hauling to make sure that they don't have to leave to go do their own water hauling.
I want to take a step back, and I know that you've touched a little bit on some of your cultural traditions. And again, when we started off, we were talking about the food. It's Navajo soul food. I know that you all serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been fortunate. Personally, I've spent a lot of time with the Lakota tribe, and I am more familiar with Lakota traditions personally than I am with those from Navajo Nation. But for anyone who is interested in this region and the land and your community, can you share a little bit more about your culture and what makes it really unique, and what you'd like to share with our community of travelers?
Sure. The Navajo, our culture is based on the philosophy. Our philosophy is based on Hajon, which means happiness. And every day in everything that we do, even talking, everything that, even eating, drinking water, is based on for us to achieve that state of Hajon, which is happiness. Always trying to even with people that we interact with on a daily basis, we're always trying to strive for that positivity and that hajon and trying to reinforce that. And so that's what our philosophy is based on. So even, like I said, even down to when we eat, when you're done eating, you say, you bless yourself with the food that you eat. You say, I'll be in the state of hajon, which is happiness. And then even down to our songs and our prayers are all have that basic philosophy of hajon. It no matter what we do, that's what we strive for every day. I'm not saying that we all achieve it every day. We all fight our demons every day. So, sometimes we have, our moments, but we have, and that is constantly being reinforced, the do's and the don'ts, the taboos, and even like, I have my moments and my mom will say, hey, you be careful with what you say because your words have power. Your thoughts, your words and your thoughts are real. Even if you think something and you don't say it, you've already set it into motion. So that, to me, I think that makes the Navajo culture and tradition very, very unique. And we still have our language, and we still have a lot of our ceremonies and our culture that are still very intact. And this pandemic has really impacted that because, right, we're not having any of our summer ceremonies, which is very community involved. And then this coming winter, we have our winter ceremonies, and those are not happening either because they're very community involved. We have our young ladies that have their womanhood ceremonies when they enter their womanhood. Those are very community involved. So a lot of our big ceremonies are being put on hold, and when we do have some families that do have ceremonies, they are limited to only 5 people, or that's what they're being encouraged to do. So we do our best to practice that, to do the social distancing. And when we do our ceremonies, we do try to do our best to limit to 5 people, and then we do wear our masks. So that's what we do. And like I said, to me, I feel like our culture is very unique because it's based on hajon. But if you look at other cultures, a lot of it theirs is based on that too. But it's very hard to explain that. So that's the best way I can explain it in English. It has more meaning when you do those explanations in Navajo.
I love that mindset, and also just thinking about how your thoughts are powerful, because it does have such an impact on your day-to-day life. Well, thinking about all of that, and what a labor of love it is to start a small business within your community, as well as the significance of your culture and why that's important. For those who are thinking about going on a road trip right now, should they even be visiting or going through the Grand Canyon area, in your opinion, knowing that, as you mentioned, parts of that are unavoidable for interaction there? Do you think that they should be visiting at this point?
I I I have not been to the Grand Canyon since the pandemic. I do have family members that live there, and they do say that there is a lot of the places are actually they're restricted to wearing masks, and they're doing the best that they can. So I'm not going to say no to visiting. You know, I just encourage people to just do their best to stay safe, and also to be aware that everything that you do is impacting somebody's community or is impacting somebody. So it's just best to always practice safety. And a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people are not aware the Navajo Nation, it does mandate you to wear a mask when you are in a public setting. And if you're going to go through the reservation, you are going to encounter a lot of local community because we don't have that many places to do our shopping. So you are going to see that so when you do go to those communities, be as safe as you can. Be very vigilant. It is very important because you are making an impact, you know, on not just our communities, but other communities. Even Grand Canyon is a small community. The Grand Canyon National Park the park itself only has one grocery store. And that is where a lot of the local employees that do live there do their shopping. So I'm not going to say no, but at the same time, just always be vigilant and be very aware of what you're doing, and you are impacting somebody.
So, if you had tips to share with travelers about how to be more vigilant or how to be more aware, what would you share with them?
The only thing I can share is to follow the CDC guidelines as best as you can, because that's what we do. We're constantly washing our hands as best as we can. We carry sanitary wipes. We have to carry water, hand soap, and masks as much as we can, and we wear masks everywhere we go. When we're outside of our home, we're wearing masks, and we haven't even had any family visitors. We don't take visitors. And we only send one person to the grocery store to do everything that needs to be done. So that's the only advice I can give.
You've talked about the grocery store a lot, and just kind of thinking through the logistics of if I were planning a road trip through the region, it seems like something easy to do would just to be to pack more food. So potentially I wouldn't have to go to the grocery store or go as many times. Is that something that you would advise for travelers, just to plan ahead a little bit more so they're able to social distance in a stricter way?
Absolutely. We recently went to Colorado. We actually just took a travel trailer. We didn't stay in any hotel or anything. We went out there to do a ceremonial offering to the mountain, to one of the sacred mountains. When we went as a family, we that's what we did. We packed food. We only stopped at 2 gas stations, and that was to gas up, just to get fuel. But other than that, we packed all our food. We took all of our food. We didn't try to go to any grocery stores or do any type of shopping. That's all we did. That's so I would strongly encourage people to be very prepared. If you're over prepared, the better. And just be aware that when you do purchase something from the local convenience store, that that store is limited to what they have.
Um, and so if someone decides not to go there, are there still ways that someone can support your community from home?
Sure. A lot of our community members have their own online stores. I've reached out to an organization which is called Change Lab, and they do a lot of work with the small businesses on the reservation. And I reached out to them, and they gave me a website which is called resrising.org. If you go on there, and if you're looking for jewelry or any type of catering, I'm not saying that anybody is going to be looking for a catering, but of course, after the pandemic, you can go on that website and you just click in jewelry and then where you're located, where you're looking, whatever area, or just click jewelry and then just hit search, and it'll bring up all the small native owned businesses that have that. And then if you click on it, it provides the information if they have a website where they can purchase a lot of their. So right now we do, as currently, a lot of the jewelry vendors, which we have a majority of our people are doing jewelry vending. They have their own web page, or they have set up their jewelry sale on Facebook.
And knowing that you have a food truck, are there ways that we can support you, even through a digital experience, or just if we're not visiting the area right now, knowing that your food truck is currently closed?
Right now, currently I would love to reopen, but I take care of my mom, so I'm very concerned for her. So for her safety, I chose not to reopen, but I will reopen once the pandemic is over. So I do have a Facebook page, which is called Native Girl Navajo Soul Food. So if you go on there, if you follow it, when we do reopen, I'll be posting that on Facebook. But currently, right now, as for my business, I've been working with Planetera, where we've been doing, in the beginning, they were able to provide funding where we were able to purchase food boxes and hand sanitizer, and we were able to distribute those out through the community. And then we also have the Medicine Men's Association, and they also get food provided, and we try to provide our local medicine men with food boxes and stuff like that. So that's what we're doing, but it's very difficult to do that, but because we don't want to risk going to other people's homes, so we just leave the boxes on the door and we leave. And so those are the two main things that we're doing as our small business. But I'll let everybody know when we do reopen. It's a little harder with food.
Absolutely. And we've mentioned Planetary Energy Adventures a couple of times. I do want to give them a quick little shout out. They've been doing an amazing job at doing fundraising for local projects around the world. Their team is actually who connected us in the first place. So it's really amazing to see the work that they're doing to support local community-based tourism projects right now.
Yes.
I think as my last question, before I open it up to Q&A, and anyone who's an attendee right now, feel free to use the Q&A feature or post in the chat, and I'll run through questions in just a couple of moments. But Alfreida, my last question for you is just that if you are envisioning a better travel industry in the future, when tourism is returning and things are going back to a new normal, if you say, what would your hopes and dreams be for that community, and what would you want travelers to know or do?
I would like travelers to know that I would appreciate it if they were to provide more local support to the local vendors. So those are the ones that are keeping the community going. We do have a lot of trading posts that are on the reservation. Currently, like in our community, it's called the Cameron Trading Post. That is privately owned. It's on a private land. It has no connection or no affiliation with the Navajo Nation. So, and they do provide employment for our people locally, but I would prefer travelers to turn their attention more to the local vendors, of the people that are actually living in that community, the people that are actually providing for their community, that are, that goes a long way compared to a trading post that has no affiliation with our tribe. And so just be mindful of those things, and have a lot of borderline our reservation that are also that have no affiliation with the tribe. They're all privately owned and they're not native owned. So just do your research and make sure that you are providing giving businesses to people that are native owned, small businesses. They're the ones that make the world turn.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And from the traveler's perspective as well, those are your most memorable experiences when you're able to connect with locals and support local businesses. So I am going to open it up for the Q&A. We have a couple of questions already. One, Carl asked if you have access to the internet at your food truck.
I do have access. I use internet. I'm sure everybody knows what a hotspot is. So the only internet that we have access to is through cellular towers. As far as getting a satellite internet and things like that, we do have access to that, but we prefer to use the cellular towers because those internet, that it works better for us. As far as my business, I work with Verizon, and that's the only one that works in our area. It is very hard to get internet in other areas, especially high-speed internet. So that is the reason why a lot of our small businesses, they do that really need the internet. They move their businesses off the reservation because they have better access to high-speed internet.
And then a couple of people are asking for links to your Facebook page. For anyone who's not in the chat right now and they're listening on Facebook, it is facebook.com/Navajo Soul Food is your own food truck. And
yes.
Can you remind me of, you mentioned the website where people can purchase jewelry right now. Can you remind me of the name of that so I can share that link?
Sure, it's called resrising.org. It's REZRISING.org.
Perfect.
And you can find Change Lab on the Facebook also, and they're the ones that do a lot of work within the small businesses, helping people start small businesses, and that one's also Navajo owned.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll send all of those links in a follow-up email as well. Someone, Gabrielle asked, she said, thank you for hosting us. Could you share, you have the websites and groups. Megan asked, are there any GoFundMe or any orgs that you can recommend that we can donate to help support, if possible, for aid development, etc.? Go ahead.
Okay, the one that I would, that comes to mind would be Water Warrior. I believe he's on Facebook. They do, what they've been doing is they've been delivering water on a daily basis to individuals that don't have water, and also they're providing the water tanks. I think they're like 275-gallon water tanks to individuals that don't have a big enough water containers. And then there's also another one. It's called let me look really quick. I'm sorry. I do have another one, and they're both nonprofit organizations, and they both just recently started. But the Water Warrior one is one of the more recent ones, and it's very important because it does deal with the water. So there's another one, and this one, she works with recently started her own also, and she's called, I'm sorry, I should have pulled this up earlier, but it's called Healing Our Communities, and she's on Facebook also, and that's also a nonprofit, and they do a lot of food. They provide propane, and then they also have been providing waste management for individuals that are not able to dispose of their garbage. So every Friday they bring a big truck out, and to the local our local chapter, and then people come in and they dump all their garbage there, and they haul that away. So those would be the two main ones that I would recommend.
Perfect. And I will get those links from you to make sure I have them accurately.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
I'll be sure to share them with all of the attendees in the follow-up email. We had one attendee ask us, they said, I really appreciate this conversation and information. If we must drive through the Navajo Nation, i.e. on our way to Utah, can you recommend where we would stop to get gas, groceries, etc. before the nation?
The last stop, the best place would be Flagstaff, Arizona, or right before the border, which is probably less than a mile, would be the Gray Mountain gas station. And so those would be the two from my end where I'm located. I wouldn't know on the other end. We're so big, so I don't know exactly what those stations will be called.
Do you know if, out of curiosity, is there a place where travelers could go to find that information? Is there like one resource that is community driven in some capacity that makes it easier to find that information, or does that exist at all?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that exists. There's another one, would be tribesnet.org.
Okay.
They might be able to have that information. So I'm not too sure. They'll quote me on that because I haven't really explored their website.
Okay. And David asked, given the size of Navajo Nation, would it help the community to visit less popular parks to bring business to other parts of the nation?
Well, as far as the Navajo Nation, all our parks are closed. The Navajo Nation is, even our tribal offices, we're all are closed, and they have not announced when we will be reopening. So if you do travel through the reservation, you'll be basically just driving through. There's really no place for anybody to stop. So it would be the federal, the national parks would probably be their best place to go visit. But as far as Navajo Nation, everything is closed. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Adventurous Antelope Canyon tours. They're Navajo owned tours. They do the tours for the Antelope Canyon in Page, Arizona. Those are all Navajo Nation national parks. They have been closed since the pandemic started, and they haven't reopened.
Well, Alfreida, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing your insight, telling us more about your community and culture, as well as what the situation is like on the ground right now. I do want to leave the last words with you. Is there anything else that you want to share with our community of travelers today?
I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I'm glad that I was able to provide some insight. And if you're going to travel, stay safe, and hopefully we all can meet one day and we get through this pandemic. So thank you very much.
Thank you.